So we're here with the Angelica Film Blog and Selig Film News here with the man behind A Ghost Story, David Lowery. David, I know this is so great for you and the team because this is a Dallas project. You got to hammer this out right here at home. Can you talk to me about being able to have everyone that you know and not only just friends and filmmakers, but you've got so many people that have just made this possible right here at home?
I mean, yeah, we could not have made this movie anywhere else. We would not have been able to pull it off. We made it very quickly for very little money, and we really counted on, the kindness of our friends and the generosity of the film industry here in Dallas. And if we had tried to do this anywhere else, we would have just been shut down almost right away.
A lot of people in the audience are so glad that they noticed certain spots. And even one guy noticed the building in particular, Cityscape. Can you talk about going in your hometown, because I know you're used to, being out of state, wanting to get certain locations, but knowing, okay, I know exactly where I want to go with this. Can you talk about being so familiar, but also trying to find something unique, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't actually have, in this case, specific locations we were trying to find, but we knew the way things looked in certain places. Like, we knew we'd be able to find a house that looked that way here in Texas. We knew that we'd be able to find a building that would give us what we needed in downtown Dallas. The only location I knew from the get-go that I wanted was the Trinity floodplains, that was in the script, and I was like, that location will be, off the Sylvan Bridge. We'll just go get that beautiful panoramic shot there. Other than that, I didn't really have anything in mind initially, but I just knew where to look here in DFW to find the things we needed.
When you go to Casey and Rooney about this, I mean, obviously they love you and they're familiar with you, but this is something that a little bit more intimate, a little more personal. Did you sell it like that, or did you just give them the script and say, if you guys have the time, can we do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was pitched more to them as a lark. I texted Casey and was like, hey, I'm going to go make this ghost movie in Texas this summer. Do you want to be in it? And he was like, sure. He didn't ask questions. He was just like, yeah, sure, I'll come. Rooney, I'd gotten the phone with and explained it to her because it was a little bit more, her process of deciding to do it was a little bit more involved. She had more to do in the movie. Even though the ghost is in every scene, Casey didn't have to do that much. So the decision that Rooney had to make was like, do I want to engage with this project that is so strange and is going to ask a lot of me as an actress? And ultimately, she was totally down to do it too. She just, wanted to understand what my point of view was. And so for her, it was important that I explained the ways in which it was personal, the ways in which I intended to make the film, how it would function, even the running time of it. She wasn't sure, based on the script, if it would actually amount to a feature film. And so I had to explain to her, like, the pace of the movie and how this 30-page screenplay would then, result in a 90-minute movie.
How hard is it to go off something that doesn't have that much dialogue? I mean, how much of this was in your head before, and how much was built once you found the locations? I
mean, it was all there. I mean, the script looked exactly like the movie. We changed very, very little. The funny thing is, it's easier for me to make movies without dialogue. Dialogue is always where I get hung up and stuck, and when I'm making a more traditional film, I usually wind up cutting out as much dialogue as I possibly can. So going into this movie, knowing that tendency of mine, I just didn't put any in there. I knew it would be more direct expression of what I wanted if I didn't clutter the movie up with people chit-chatting.
Someone brought up the subtitles and the fact that you guys didn't use subtitles for the family, but for the ghost you did. Can you talk about that unique choice? And I mean, I do want to point out that I think you were completely right about the family. I think everyone understood what was going on in those sequences, but can you talk about that choice? Because that's, I think, a pivotal choice as a filmmaker. Everyone would have maybe made a different choice if they looked at that and said, maybe we do need a subtitle here just to communicate what's going on, but you didn't go that way.
It was just that type of movie, like there are movies where you do need to know every line of dialogue, but I've gone to watch movies in languages that I don't speak that have no subtitles and had wonderful experiences watching those movies. Sometimes I go to a film festival in another country and the print will be subtitled in another language as well, and I just have to just sit back and just make sense of the movie on a very formal level. You don't have all the usual, signifiers to guide you through the story, so you have to engage on a different level, and it's really actually quite enjoyable to me. Sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes you just get lost, you don't know what's going on, but it can be a really wonderful experience. So I wanted that to be, part of it. I wanted people to have that experience where they have to reassess the way in which they're watching that sequence because they can't depend on dialogue to guide them through. But it also is such a fluid sequence. It's such an emotional sequence, and it really is from the point of view of the ghost who doesn't speak. So there are ways in which it still works. Like you don't really. I think most people will watch it and probably not think about the fact that they don't know what the actors are saying, unless they speak Spanish, in which case they'll know what they're saying, but also understand that it isn't that important. There's a little bit here and there. Maybe the last dialogue the mother has with her son is somewhat important, but it's not really about them, even though they're the heart of that sequence, and I love them as characters. And so it's okay to not know. It's just that's a wonderful experience as a moviegoer for me, when I realize I don't need to stress out and try to follow everything. I can just let go and just follow, the direction that the filmmakers have laid out for me. And if a filmmaker decides not to put subtitles in a movie, there's got to be a reason. It's not an accident. And so you just kind of kick back and just trust that you're going to get what you need out of the experience.
Speaking of foreign languages, the ability for you guys to have traveled with this film, I mean, it obviously started with Sundance, and you have a great relationship, you, James, Toby, but from there, it's gone some really fun places. Can you talk about being able to take this type of film and, I mean, Ain't Them Body Saints travel too, but I mean, you guys have gone Europe. I mean, it's kind of gone all over the place.
Yeah, and it's going to be opening all over the world over the next few months, which is really exciting. I think, because there's so little dialogue in the movie, it actually will play quite well in other countries, because you just don't have to pay attention. By the same, logic that suggests we don't need to know what the family is saying when they move in. Technically, we don't need to know that much of the other dialogue too. I think it gets a little more important when Will Oldham starts talking, but nonetheless, most of the movie is silent, and so you can enjoy it regardless of whether you speak English or not. And so I'm excited to show it to more audiences. We've had a wonderful experience so far in the UK and in Europe, and over the next few months, they'll be just going even further than that. And I'm going to go to Hong Kong with it in September, and I'm really excited to see what people there think of it.
Speaking of that party scene in particular, because that's obviously the heaviest dialogue, and I guess you'd say the most profound moment of, what maybe looking at the bigger picture, I guess. Can you talk about putting that scene in there? And I mean, it's a form of levity for the audience, but it's also really intriguing what he's talking about, and it gets to kind of the heart. Someone asked in the Q&A just a second ago about the afterlife and the belief, but I think that sequence talks much more about the bigger picture and the fact that he does time travel, but it's not necessarily about heaven or earth. It's something maybe bigger. Yeah,
I mean, I think what is going on in that scene is a character who doesn't have all the answers, but is sort of laying out the journey that he's on, and the journey that of trying to figure out, a way in which to move forward as a human being. I think that it is important to understand how to function in life on an optimistic level, in spite of everything, the terrible that goes on in the world around us, without just letting faith be the cure-all. Like, regardless of whether you believe in an afterlife or heaven or hell or any of that stuff, I think it's important to be able to maintain a pragmatic sense of optimism and hope within the context of our everyday life. And that's what that scene is all about. That's a character trying to figure out a way in which he can, and we as a species can move forward with hope, even though there is, on a physical, pragmatic level, a inherent meaninglessness to everything.
Mm. Can you talk about the sound design choices mixed in with the music choices, specifically with his song? And then I love that someone brought up the humming in her sequence. About the whole sound design of the entire film, what made you go with specific choices and what you're trying to showcase with that?
Well, we just knew that with a movie that had so much silence, the sound design was going to be really important. It really, in those silent scenes that go on for a long time, it really is meant to, on a subconscious level, guide the audience along and kind of hold their hand through some of the more, challenging sequences of the film. It also is an indicator of the type of movie it is, because we really designed certain sequences to sound like traditional horror films. There are definitely some, scary movie sound effects in this movie. And working with Johnny Marshall, our sound designer, what I did was I just let him design everything to a hilt. Like, especially like taking, for example, the scene where Rooney and Casey wake up in the middle of the night, having heard a scary noise. That was like, he designed that like it was, a summer blockbuster horror film. And it was just every moment had like a scary noise. Like when he turns the light switch on, there was a stinger. And I told him to just go to town, make it as dense and as designed to a hilt as you possibly can, then we'll go in and pull it back. We'll sculpt it. And that was a process that took, all fall. He started in October, and we weren't done until January. Mm-hmm. The last thing we did before we sent the movie to Sundance was go in and pull a few more sound effects out, because we just needed a little bit more space around them. And then, of course, the music fills in there too, and the music is also a signifier for the audience. It is an indicator as to what the emotional journey of the character is. And because the character is, for all intents and purposes, a blank slate, we need those indicators. We need to know what to project onto him, and the music is a wonderful tool for that. So Daniel Hart, who's done the music for all of my movies, wrote the score, and the score, every piece of the score comes from that song that he wrote, which occurs roughly halfway through the movie. And we knew that song would be key to the movie. We didn't know where it was going to go. In the script, that scene happens closer to the beginning, but once we moved it to the middle, Daniel decided to base every piece of score off that song. So you're hearing little bits of that song all the way up until you finally hear it, and then for the rest of the movie, you're still hearing it, even though you're not actually hearing it.
Wow. I've got to ask, you brought up that the Angelica, and not only just the Angelica, but some of the older theaters here in Dallas have impacted your life and impacted this film in particular. Can you share some of your experiences that maybe not just led to this, but led to all that you've been able to do so far?
I mean, going to see movies is it's A, my favorite thing to do, but B, it's the most helpful thing for me to do as a filmmaker. So when the Angelica opened in 2001, I was 20, and I was, I spent all of my high school years going to the Inwood, going to the old UA Cine, going to all the art house theaters that were around here, and most of those are now closed. But then the Angelica kind of came in and took their place along with the Magnolia Theater, and so once again there was just so many movie-going options for me as a hungry cinephile, and I could go see these very strange, obscure foreign films playing right here in Dallas, and that really was my education. I didn't watch a lot of movies at home until I got a Netflix subscription in 2003. There weren't a lot of movies available, and I didn't enjoy watching movies at home as much. I was a big screen person, so it was really instrumental to me to have access to such a impressive amount of global cinema in my backyard. And I have been coming here since the theater opened, and we'll keep coming here, and until we can just start quoting the dialogue from the movie till we die and the earth burns to a crisp and nothing matters and nothing exists anymore. Up until that point, I'll keep coming here.
I'm kind of curious. You got to take this to ILM, and I know that must have been really special for you. Can you share what that meant to you to showcase it at a place like that in particular, that deals with maybe things that people see but don't realize how many people involved in the behind the scenes of a film and what goes into it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that got me into movies, the thing was Star Wars, and I was always, very aware of the artists and technicians who worked at Industrial Light and Magic. I knew them by name. I knew who did what on all those old Star Wars and Indiana Jones movies, and the way they did visual effects back then, before computers, was one of the things that hooked me on motion pictures in general. I spent a long time wanting to be a visual effects artist because of the artistry that they displayed in the movies they made. Not just the George Lucas and Spielberg ones, but Back to the Future, Rocketeer, just any movie from 1977 up until the dawn of CG with Jurassic Park. All those visual effects really were, and of course Jurassic Park was a big part of it too, but now everything's done with computers, so it feels a little less special, even though it's still incredibly special what they do. I just was so inspired by all of that visual effects work, so getting to go to the place where those visual effects were created and meet the people that made them and show this movie to them was really impactful. We deliberately tried to make some of the visual effects in this movie feel like old ILM effects, particularly the ones in Poltergeist, like the glowing portals and things like that. And meeting the guy, Lauren Peterson, who did all the models for Poltergeist and who watched the movie last week, was a really extraordinary experience.
What's it like that you get to do these small films and do the bigger films? You've been able to carve your own niche and do it your way. How important is that to you?
I mean, I'm just stubborn. That's really what it is. I didn't go to film school. I didn't ever try to, work my way up in the industry. I just wanted to make movies my way. Like, just, I was stubbornly independent, and I remain so. And somehow that has worked out. Somehow I've managed to now make, one big studio movie. I'm sure I'll make more, but also I can go and make little movies with my friends back in Texas and just kind of shift around. All that really matters to me is that I care about the movie and feel like it's personal to me in some shape, way, or form. And luckily, I've been able to find movies of all sizes that feel that way to me.
Well, to end things, I'd love to know what you look or read or what things inspire you outside of film, or maybe just films that have caught your eye recently, that just kind of keep you on the periphery of what's going on when you're not, immersed like in Cincinnati with your film or what's coming up next for you.
I mean, I go see movies all the time no matter what. And when I'm shooting a movie, I have to see at least one movie a week or I feel like I'm going crazy. While we were in Cincinnati, I saw a movie called Personal Shopper by Olivier Assayas, which I just flipped out for and was just, I remain obsessed with that movie even though I haven't seen it since then. As soon as I've wrapped on that movie and came back to Dallas, I came here and saw this Terrence Davies movie called A Quiet Passion. Just flipped out for that movie too. Those are probably my two favorite movies I've seen this year so far. I can hear Dunkirk just thundering through the walls in here right now, and I can't wait to go see that tomorrow. I saw Valerian the other night, and I just really enjoyed that. I'm a big Fifth Element fan, and I felt that this was just right up alongside that. I just really got a kick out of that movie. And then I just read a lot. I'm a literature nut in a way. I don't read fast, so I don't read as much as I would like to, but I love reading, and I get a lot out of the English language, whether it's a work that originated in that language or was translated into it, and it really matters to me. I would love to write a novel one day, although I don't think I'd have the patience. So, I read a lot. Right now I'm reading George Saunders' Lincoln and the Bardo, which actually corresponds to a ghost story in a really interesting way and is really, really wonderful and really adventurous in terms of how it uses literary form to tell its story. I just read a memoir by Maggie Nelson called The Argonauts, which is one of the best books I've read in a long time. Really, really beautiful piece of writing that, again, is very formally adventurous and just incredibly, immensely moving. So I highly recommend that. Listen to a lot of music, too much to list here. Obviously, the new Lorde album is amazing, but that's, just scratching the surface of what I listen to. And so, yeah, there's I try to engage with the arts as much as I can. And I find no shortage of inspiration in the works of artists who I admire.
Well, A Ghost Story, as you said, is going to open worldwide. It definitely opens here in Dallas and Plano. It's already open today. So, David, thank you for the time, and I hope people realize what a great artist you are and what you can do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys showing the movie.